All right, Jane, we're recording.
Okay. Welcome to the McFarland Museum. So we change out our lobby display every few years, and at this time we are honoring the Ho-chunk. The Ho-chunk lived in what is now McFarland for many years. In fact, there were Ho-chunk villages all around the Four Lakes, and of course they were here long before the white settlers came. So we do have just a few Ho-chunk left in our community. And we also have Art Shigoni, he's not Ho-chunk, he's actually Potawatomi and Menominee. But he was on our committee. In fact, we had a very nice committee that worked on this display. And Art and his wife Dawn had a lot of good ideas and a lot of good suggestions for us. And we also used Bill Quackenbush for his expertise. And Bill is a Ho-chunk Indian, and he's actually the historian of the Ho-chunk people. So we've got this explanation as you first come in, and it talks about how this land was very important and very sacred to people for many thousands of years. In fact, we have artifacts that are at least 11,000 years old that were taken from this community, from this area. So we know that, with Lake Wabisa, Mud Lake, the Hare River, there were wonderful resources here. And that's why it attracted people over the years, over the millennia. But we did decide to focus on the Ho-chunk because, of course, they had a village right here in McFarland. And I want to draw your attention over here as you first come in. We've got a little bit of information about the culture of the Ho-chunk. They were strong gardeners. They depended on agriculture as well as hunting and fishing. And the women actually were the gardeners. And they grew corn, and they grew beans and squash. So those were the major crops that they grew. And the men, of course, hunted and fished, and occasionally they waged war against other tribes. But they were very friendly with the Menominee and the Potawatomi. They had clans. And they had clans that were above the earth and clans that were on the earth. And each clan had certain responsibilities, such as the Bear clan, they were supposed to be like the police officers of the tribe. And the Ho-chunk were patrilineal, meaning that the children always belonged to the same clan as their father. Now, you could not intermarry within the clan. You had to marry somebody outside of your own clan. Over here we have a cradle board, and this actually it is modeled on the Ho-chunk curriculums that they used. And almost all of the Indian groups in North America use cradle boards. They're very handy. You could, hang them up in the birch tree, and the child seemed to be very happy. The birch tree would sway and rock, and they could see what was going on down below, but it kind of kept them out of danger and out of trouble. Now, there is a song, Rockabye Baby, in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. You're probably familiar with that. That actually came from a tribe in Oklahoma, and the sister of Davy Crockett, Effie Crockett, noticed the Muskogee mother singing to her baby, who was up in the cradle board, up in the birch tree. And she sang this song. And Effie translated the song into English, and it became very popular. But it's the bough breaking is sort of a metaphor for the baby getting too large, too big, growing up. It's sort of like our leaving the nest. Now over here, of course, we have a rather large portion of a Ho-Chunk lodge. And originally they would make the lodges maybe partially out of mats, cattail mats, and birch bark and hides. Well, when we were putting this together, we really did not have access to the cattail stems that you need, so we decided just to make it all of birch bark, which Art Ciccone said was perfectly suitable, that was appropriate. So this one is mostly birch bark. That we do have a bear skin on part of it. We have a deer hide for the door. And you can see inside we've got a little flame going because, they would have a little fireplace, and they could use it for cooking food and also for warmth. And up here we have a sapling that's attached to part of the birch bark, and it's open, and that allows the smoke, of course, to go up and out of the lodge. Now, the Algonquin tribes called this a wigwam, but the Ho-Chunk called it a Ciiporokes. So Ciiporokes is the proper term for this structure. We have this lovely mural that our president, Dale Marsden, made. He's quite an artist. And this is representing the Babcock Park area where Lake Waubesa flows into the Yahara River. And you can see we've got a beaver dam there. And we also have a signal tree. The Native Americans would bend a branch in a certain way to let their tribe and other Indians know which way is the major path. And over here is a beaver stump, and this we actually use this tree to make our Ciiporokes. This came from the Yahara Golf Course. There's a very ambitious beaver who was still living there at the golf course, and he cut down this very large tree. So we were happy to take advantage of his work. Over here, we have some lovely maps that a history teacher in McFarland gave us. This is from Brian Ward, and this is the map showing the lands that were, considered Ho-Chunk land. And we've got the 1829, 1832, 1837. You can see how they were kind of pushed from their original area, and then eventually they were pushed out of Wisconsin. They were forced out of Wisconsin. Back in around 1830, the U.S. government decided they wanted all Indian tribes to be west of the Mississippi. And so they forced them to go to this neutral ground in Iowa, and then they forced them to go up here into Minnesota, and then they forced them to go to this Blue Earth Reservation, and then to Crow Creek Reservation, and then to Nebraska. And every time they had to get up and move, it was not a happy time, and frankly, people died along the trail as they didn't, have sufficient food, and they were forced to march whether they were capable or not. But every time they moved, about half of the Ho-Chunk would find their way back to Wisconsin, because Wisconsin was their home. It was sacred ground. Yep. We have some lovely photographs of Ho-Chunk from the Black River Falls area. There was a photographer in the Black River Falls area who had a special relationship with the Ho-Chunk. And they came in and he took photographs of them in their regalia. And this happened in the late 1800s and early 1900s. Yeah, right around 1900. So here you can see this woman and her son and they have their traditional leggings and beads, and yeah, it's just a lovely photograph. And here's a young woman with her son, and this is one of the blankets that they would trade for, and then they would just, wrap it around when the weather was cold. And these ho-chunk were part of a Wild West show. Now, when the ho-chunk came back in around 1870 and they purchased land, most of the good land was gone. So they had to figure out other ways of earning money. And one of the ways was to be part of a Wild West show. Now the ho-chunk, it was their, part of their culture was the men kept their hair pretty short, and they'd only wear like one feather. But then when they started being part of the Wild West shows, then they sort of went along with the plains culture of having long hair and many feathers. Okay, so let's go over here. Okay, Don Shigoni put this together, and this we do have Harry Whitehorse here, but a lot of it has to do with arts activities. They started what they called Call for Peace. It was a drum and dance company. Unfortunately, Art is no longer able to dance, although he did dance recently at the UCC church along with Bill Miller. Bill Miller is a famous singer, songwriter, and Art actually stood up and did some dancing during the time that Bill was singing. So that was pretty special. And we have, on this side, we have Whitehorse, the Whitehorse family display. And Walter Whitehorse still lives in McFarland. And he is actually 100 years old now. Walter, when he was 19, he volunteered for the Navy in World War II. And his brother, Harry, who was 17, also volunteered for the Navy. And of course, here we have a Navy hat. But both Walter and Harry contributed greatly to their communities. Harry was a famous sculptor and artisan. Yeah. In fact, some of his artwork is in Japan, I believe. So that's our Native American display, and we're very, very proud of it.
Thank you very much. Can you once again tell me the hours you guys are available?
Oh, yes. During the summer, from June through September, we're open every Sunday afternoon from 1 to 4. And the same for we've got the Scary Log Cabin behind this building, and we also have an annex with our early farm display. And then just a couple blocks away on Exchange Street is the Larson House Museum. And that's also open every Sunday in the summer from 1 to 4. So we encourage you to stop by because the museums are free, but of course we encourage donations and we really encourage membership because that keeps us going. So